All right, let's get into it. UFC 243 preview. Um, Whitaker against Adesanya. It's gonna be a good fight this Saturday. I'm really down to watch it. I have work on Saturday, so I'm probably gonna miss like the first part of the card, but I should be watching. You know, like at least the main card. I'll say. Well, this is really a kind of a bad card. Like, and I'm gonna be honest. I haven't been watching as much UFC as I used to. I usually watch every single card, every single fight because I've been training since I was 13 years old. I've always wanted to be in the UFC. I mean, it's still kind of my goal to this day. I'm never going to give up on that goal, but I don't know. I haven't had time with work and school and all this stuff, but like, man, I want to see this fight on Saturday. And I've been watching all the pay-per-views at least. Fight nights, I've been kind of slacking on. Like, I saw Justin Gaethje against Cerrone, and Justin Gaethje really tore him up. I didn't see Yair Rodriguez against Jeremy Stevens at all. And then I didn't see the Chinese one either. The Chinese girl against Jessica Andrade. Did not see that. And I did see the Khabib fight, but I've been slacking a little bit. Robert Whitaker against Israel Adesanya, man, that's going to be a good fight. And I don't know who I got in this, but I mean, I do know who I got, but like, I'm not going to tell you yet, but it's going to be a good fight. I'm telling you. Both these guys have every type of skill. Well, Adesanya is a little suspect on the ground, but I don't really expect Whitaker to take the fight to the ground. I think they're both gonna stand that out and bang it. I mean, Whitaker is the current champion right now, so he should be favored, but I think Adesanya is the favorite. And in my opinion, I think Adesanya is gonna win this fight, man. He's too quick. He's too good at striking. You got a guy that's a top level kickboxer in the UFC, and the middleweight division is not a division with like many of the highest level guys you get in the world. I mean, Adesanya is a great athlete too. I mean, he's probably he's kind of like a middleweight version of John Jones if you think about it. Except John Jones is a much better grappler than Adesanya is. But Adesanya is a little bit better at striking, and he's quicker than Jones for sure. That would be an interesting fight one day, but Adesanya and Whitaker, Whitaker has heart, though. That's the one thing. Adesanya's going to hit him with everything he can, and Whitaker's just going to come right back at him. I kind of think that Adesanya's going to win this fight. It's going to be close, though, and it's going to be a war. It's going to be by decision. I don't think he's going to finish Whitaker. Whitaker's a warrior, man. He took Yoel Romero's toughest shots. Like, that takes a lot. It really does. I'm going to have to go with Israel Adesanya to win the UFC middleweight title. It's insane how he only came in the UFC like 2 years ago and he's already at the belt. Like, I remember his first fight in the UFC. I was watching it, and I was a senior in high school. Like, are you kidding me? And we're already here. Wow. Like, that's really, that's insane to think about how quickly he's gone. He's already the interim champion. Now he this weekend could become the real champion. Co-main event, we got Ally Quinta against Dan Hooker. I mean, Ally Quinta looked pretty good in his last fight, even though he lost to Donald Cerrone. I loved the showing that he put on because he really hung in there. He showed he was tough enough. He showed he could stand in there and, take those beatings and then still put up a fight against Cerrone. And he was very impressive against Kevin Lee, very impressive against Khabib. Even though he lost the Khabib fight too. I'm going to have to go with Iaquinta. I mean, Hooker's a good fighter, but I just think Iaquinta's an elite guy. Iaquinta's going to beat him. The rest of this card really is terrible. I don't even want to go over it, to be honest, but I guess I'll have to. Tai Tuivasa against Sergey Spivak. I've never seen Spivak before. I've seen Tuivasa. I'm going to have to go Tuivasa. He's solid. Good heavyweight. Welterweight Luke Jumo against Diego Lima. Oh, this is a terrible fight. I'm gonna have to go Diego Lima. Never even heard of these guys. I'm skipping that. Never heard Jake Matthews against Rostam Akman. Never heard of Rostam Akman. I have to go Matthews. God, this card is bad. I don't know what the UFC is doing, thinking they could sell this as a pay-per-view. This is a bad card. It's really bad. Probably one of the worst I've seen. Let's talk about like the other fights that's been booked this week. For UFC 245, we have Kamaru Usman against Colby Covington. Finally booked. This is a matchup between the two best welterweights in the world right now, in my opinion. And I really don't like Colby Covington, and everybody knows this. You know how he's always with the Donald Trump hat, and he's always trying to claim he's the best welterweight in the world, and everyone's a nerd and whatnot. But he's really just a big tough guy. But he's a pretty good fighter. He has excellent pressure. He really puts it on. He's a good wrestler, and he has great cardio. He's kind of like a wrestling Diaz. Like, imagine Diaz instead of they boxed you, they wrestle you, or they clinch you and stuff like that. That's kind of how I see him as. But Kamaru Usman, man, he's the complete package in my opinion. There's little concerns about his defense because he does leave himself open to get hit sometimes. But this guy could box. He can wrestle. His jiu-jitsu is a little questionable too. But he's a really good fighter. I'm going to have to go with him. Then the UFC 245 is in December, by the way, if anyone was wondering. It's the last pay-per-view of the year. Then we have Amanda Nunes against Germaine de Randamie. This is probably like the last challenge for Amanda Nunes, in my opinion, for the belt. Like, for her title defenses, she's probably completely done after this fight with Germaine de Randamie. She's the only fighter that... Well, Amanda Nunes has actually beat Germaine de Randamie. They fought back in 2013, back when both were not top fighters in the division. But now they're going to fight again. And it's a completely different fight. After Germaine de Randamie won the UFC Featherweight Championship, then vacated it, and Chris Cyborg won it. And then Amanda Nunes moved up to featherweight from bantamweight, where she was already champion, and beat Chris Cyborg for the featherweight title. Now they're actually going to fight at bantamweight for the belt instead of featherweight, which is interesting, where they originally fought back in 2013. But I think this fight is going to be another win for Amanda Nunes, and she's going to solidify why she's the greatest women's fighter to ever live, and walk into the cage in mixed martial arts, because it's undoubtedly her. Like, if someone even wants to say Ronda Rousey, you just give them a YouTube footage of what happened in the fight between Amanda Nunes and Ronda Rousey. That's the reason why Ronda Rousey is not the greatest of all time. It's Amanda Nunes, bro. Like, everybody knows. She's beaten every single champion. This is the last step for her to just distinguish herself as the GOAT, in my opinion. Then next, we have Max Holloway defending his featherweight title against Alexander Volkanovski. Now, this is a very interesting fellow over here, Alexander Volkanovski. This dude is a beast. He's a jacked Australian cannonball, and he is out to hunt people. He will knock anybody out. I mean, this dude just come up with 2 wins against Jose Aldo and Chad Mendes. Like, that's as good as it gets. And everybody knows Jose Aldo is my favorite fighter. He's my idol. Like, when I was growing up, I wanted to be just like him. So that fight really broke my heart. But yeah, man, I'm going to give it to Alexander Volkanovski. He's solid, but Max Holloway is the best featherweight in the world. He beat Jose Aldo twice. He beat Frankie Edgar. He beat Brian Ortega. He's beat the who's who in the featherweight division, Jeremy Stevens, Cub Swanson, like you name it. Max Holloway has beat Anthony Pettis. You name it, he's beat them. I can't go against Max, man. The guy's one of the best champions in the UFC that we've ever seen, in my opinion. This is his fight. And then for the 244 main event, oh, man, you want to talk about a fight, man. Nate Diaz against Jorge Masvidal for the baddest, on the planet. Oh, that's going to be in New York City, too. I'm really thinking about going. That's going to be one of the best fights ever, in my opinion. There's no way it can't. That fight is going to be insane. I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell you who I'm picking right now. Like, they're both two of my favorite fighters. I'm a big-time Diaz fan because I'm more of a Nick Diaz fan, though, like, than Nate. I really liked Nick Diaz back in the day. He was my favorite fighter. And then, I started becoming more of a Nate fan over time, too. And I really like Nate now, too. But Masvidal, man, I've always been a big-time fan of him, too. So this is a really tough fight for me. That's going to be another one that I can't wait to see. And then you got some other fights, like Alistair Overeem against Walt Harris. That's going to be decent. There's some other fights coming up that are good. I'll get into future weeks when they're coming up. And that's the end of this segment. Just one more. We're going to go over some baseball next. Playoffs are about to start. So I'm about to get into that.